This is how my story begins. Not with once upon a time, but with the day I met the queen of an ancient empire. My name is Olav DeMarco. I am 34 years old. My mother is from Norway. My father is from Spain, and I grew up in Oslo, Norway. I serve as a commander in the Terran forces and have spent the last 10 years with the forward deployed infantry. I survived combat by the grace of God twice. Everyone in the unit calls me Marco for short. By the time we reached planet Tessa, humans had already met many alien civilizations. Some are peaceful and others are hostile. Human command built an outpost on Tessa's moon, close to the border of the Ashari Empire. The Ashari are impressive-looking beings. They look human except for their elf-like ears, silver skin, and long white hair. They are ruled by the queen and 12 noble houses that govern the empire's laws. The queen's name is Serafina Devak of House Senti. According to our briefing, she stands 6 feet tall, with long white hair and eyes completely blue. She wears silver and white armor that emits a low hum whenever she moves. She rules 23 systems and more than 300 colonies. She has been their queen for 280 years, and she has never lost a battle. She is a master of combat tactics, and no one dares to challenge her. The Ashari have ruled this part of the galaxy for a little over 10,000 years. They believe other species are beneath them. To them, humans are insects. When the Ashari noticed our military outpost, they saw it as a challenge and sent a fleet to learn our intentions. The void tore open, and their ships suddenly decloaked. Our sensors picked up their signatures seconds later. Their armor plating was white and silver, sleek and dangerous. They looked like shards of polished moonstone instead of warships. The sensor array screamed a warning as a jagged spike of energy cut through the silence of the outpost. Beside me, Captain Jorge Vasquez stared at the main viewer, holding a forgotten cup of cold coffee. Their ships did not just float in space, they hummed like a swarm of bees. "Look at those things. They look like flying works of art," Mara whispered. "But they could destroy us in seconds," Vasquez muttered. The communication console beeped. Mara Higgins, the communication officer, tapped a sequence of keys. "Incoming hail, Captain," she said. "They're opening a channel," Mara said. A holographic projection shimmered into existence. An Ashari male appeared before us. His skin was the color of dull silver. Long white hair framed his face, and his ears were pointed. A heavy leather patch covered his left eye. The eye patch made the Ashari male look like a space pirate playing dress-up. I bit my lip to keep from laughing. Vasquez gave me a sharp warning glare. When the Ashari spoke in Galactic Common, his voice did not sound human. It sounded like wind chimes. "I am Admiral Solon Tandy, commander of the Ashari Defense Forces. What is your species designation, and what is your purpose in this region?" he asked. "We are humans," Vasquez replied, his voice flat and professional. "We are here to colonize planet Tessa." The Admiral's silver face hardened. He stared at us coldly, as if we did not even exist. "You are at the Ashari Empire's border," the Admiral declared, his voice cold and arrogant. "You will not cross into our territory. Any act of aggression will be met with equal force." Vasquez did not blink. He took a slow sip of his cold coffee and said, "Okay, man, no problem." The hologram vanished. The communication channel went silent. Within seconds, the white and silver ships of the Ashari fleet shimmered and disappeared back into the void. The command center stayed silent for a moment. Then Vasquez turned toward Mara and me, his eyes wide. "Did you see what I just saw?" he asked. He looked at me and said, "Make sure everyone includes the cloaking tech in their reports. The brass needs to know about this." I leaned back against the console and crossed my arms. He did not even ask for our names. How rude. Mara looked at me, shook her head, and laughed as she left the room. Hours later, far from Tessa, the court of Ashari Prime gathered in a chamber with tall arches made of polished obsidian. High Elder Telmac of House Santelic stepped forward. "We have reviewed the data on the human species," Telmac said. "They are a spacefaring civilization, but they emerged only recently. Their technology is primitive. They are violent, unpredictable, fragile, and short-lived." The queen leaned back in her throne, narrowed her eyes, laughed, and then grew serious. Primitive, huh? Yet they built a military outpost right under our noses. Silence filled the room. Lady Salen, one of the Queen's advisors, shifted her weight and spoke calmly. We cannot jump to conclusions about their intentions. So far, they are not acting aggressively. Lady Selen looked at everyone and said, we should invite the humans to Ashari Prime and learn more about them before deciding their fate. Admiral Solon leaned back in his carved chair and laughed. They are primitives, Your Majesty, he said, scraps of a dying system clinging to a cold rock. The Queen's voice cut through the laughter. You assume they are weak because of a species report recorded many cycles ago? Solon stopped laughing, but a smirk remained on his face. Your Majesty, the data is clear. Their technology is old. The Queen interrupted him. Admiral, if we rely on outdated data, then we become the primitives ourselves. Admiral, assumption is the mother of all mistakes. We need more information, period. The Admiral shut his mouth and stared at the polished floor. Extend the invitation, the Queen said, her voice leaving no room for argument. She turned and walked toward her private chambers, her armor gleaming against the white marble. As she reached the hallway, a voice cracked through the air, thin and dry. Your Majesty, a word. The Queen stopped and turned to find Lady Selva leaning against a pillar. The old woman's wrinkled skin stretched over her bones. Her eyes were milky globes, clouded by cataracts that hid the world, but not her vision. Yes, Lady Selva, the Queen asked. I can feel his presence, the seer whispered. The prince walks among them. His bloodline is ancient, from the time of the Oshkaren. Even the stars remember it. He is a shield of star-forged iron. The banner he carries is unity. His enemies will fear his name. The Queen's eyes narrowed. If he is coming, then I will be ready. Lady Selva closed her eyes and tilted her head, as if listening to something the Queen could not hear. He will not come to rule, but to serve. When death comes for the living, he will stand in its way. He will speak the ancient language of the void. The planet has begun preparing him, Your Majesty, Lady Selva said. The Queen stood silent for a moment as the weight of the prophecy settled between them. Then she gave a sharp nod and continued down the corridor. Turning to her staff, she commanded, I need to see Lord Shabby immediately. Inside her chambers, the air smelled like mountain air after a storm. The room held only 2 chairs, a desk, and a library that climbed the walls. A knock sounded at the door. Lord Shabby, a thin figure dressed in ink-black silk, stepped inside. Your Majesty, how may I serve you? He asked. The Queen stood by the window, watching the distant peaks of Ashari Prime. Without looking at him, she said, I need all the information you can get on the humans, including those in command at the outpost. Your Majesty, these matters take time, Shabby said. Use any resources you see fit, the Queen replied. She turned and looked Shabby directly in the eyes. And Shabby, you have until first light. The spy master bowed. He moved in silence and vanished into the shadows. Before first light reached Ashari Prime, Lord Shabby presented the Queen with a data crystal. Your Majesty, I had to call in a few favors, but I got the information. She took the crystal and smiled. You called in favors, she said. Then she inserted it into the throne room console. Lord Shabby remained beside the console, silent as a shadow. A holographic display flickered to life, and she began reading in silence. Humans originate from Earth, the 3rd planet of the Sol system. They are intelligent, adaptable, and resourceful. Their high-density carbon-based biology gives them stronger bones and muscles than their appearance suggests. Under stress, they can endure pain, injury, and exhaustion longer than most standard galactic species. Humans are known to turn ordinary systems into weapons during war. They can use factories, supply routes, local terrain, and civilian infrastructure to gain an advantage. They are also capable of reverse engineering advanced alien technology during active conflict and turning it into simpler, more dangerous weapons. The Queen took a long breath, thinking, Then move to the section of the report labeled Military Leadership. Captain Jorge Vasquez commands the Human Expeditionary Force on Tessa. He earned his reputation during the Sol transit disputes after using kinetic railgun networks to defend human mining assets without starting a full-scale war. Lieutenant Mara Higgins serves as the outpost communications and systems specialist. She maintains humanity's long-range communication link with human command across light years. She is trained in quantum entanglement systems and manages the outpost arrays that provide secure, unjammable communication. As a signal warfare specialist, Mara is also trained in electronic warfare. She can cut enemy communications and hide human fleet movements using localized EM jamming. Commander Olav DeMarco is a respected ground force officer on Tessa. He has 10 years of combat experience in high-risk military operations. His record includes orbital drop deployments, heavy power armor operations, and close-quarters breach warfare. During the Siege of New Valencia and the Battle of Razor Ridge, he showed strong battlefield leadership under extreme conditions. When the Queen finished reading the report, she leaned back in silence. The humans were not primitive, not in the way Solon believed. They were young, dangerous, and far more adaptable than the data suggested. Moments later, she looked up at the waiting spy master and said, "Thank you, Lord Shabby. You may go." Shabby bowed and left the throne room. Days later at the outpost, the main terminal chimed, alerting Mara of an incoming transmission. Mara leaned toward the glowing monitor and stiffened. "What is it?" I asked. "Ashari Prime just sent us an official message," she said. "The connection we established 3 days ago is holding," she replied. I scanned the incoming message as it appeared on the screen. The Queen was requesting a meeting at the palace. "She wants human representatives on Ashari Prime," I said. "Also, a ship will arrive here in 3 days to pick us up." I looked down at my uniform. How am I going to scrub the grease off in time? We are not diplomats. "Who do we send, Commander?" Mara asked. "We are soldiers. There are no diplomats here." "If we miss this window, we look like cowards or amateurs. Or both," I replied. Mara leaned back and crossed her arms. "Then we should go. We talked to them before. It was brief, but it counts. You, me, and Captain Vasquez." I laughed at how ridiculous this mission was. Then I noticed the Ashari message did not just display text. It emitted a low-frequency vibration. I wondered if anyone else could feel it, but Mara's voice pulled me back. "I'll start the checklist," she said, already turning back to the keyboard. A grim smile spread across her face. 3 days later, steam rose from our fatigues as Mara, Vasquez, Dr. Ross, and I waited on the landing pad. An Ashari interceptor, shaped like a silver bird of prey, descended from the charcoal clouds and touched down without a sound. The ramp hissed open. An Ashari female stepped out, and her presence made the humid air feel heavier. She stood 6 feet tall, her skin the color of polished mercury. Long white hair fell over her silver and white armor, which gave off a constant low hum. Again, I felt the vibration deep in my chest. She stopped 10 paces from me. "The Queen awaits," she said, her voice melodic but cold. I did not know why she was standing in front of me, so I decided to introduce myself and the others. "I am Commander Olav DeMarco. This is Captain Jorge Vasquez, Lieutenant Mara Higgins, and Dr. Evan Ross, our outpost physician and science officer." She nodded and we entered the Ashari vessel. The silence was heavy. It muffled the sound of our breathing. "Captain," I said in a low voice, "something feels wrong." Vasquez shifted his weight and glanced at the seamless walls. "I don't like it either. No vibration. It feels like we're standing in a tomb," he murmured. Mara traced a finger along the cold wall. "They aren't fighting gravity," she said. "They're ignoring it." Dr. Evan Ross stayed a step behind, staring at the ceiling. "The air composition feels slightly off. Do you smell that? Burnt sugar and old copper?" Ross said. "I smell a lack of progress," I replied. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly, its perspective warping with every step. The walls did more than hold the ship together. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting in a rhythm no human structure could explain. Then a sharp, crystalline voice rang out. "Human representatives, the vessel has reached the FTL threshold. We have entered the harmonic transit field. The journey will conclude in 3 hours, measured in Earth time. Vasquez frowned. I felt nothing. No jolt, no acceleration. Human representatives, proceed to your assigned area, the voice said. Higgins, being Higgins, let out a short laugh. That is enough, Higgins, Vasquez said. Ross turned to Vasquez. Captain, if we have 3 hours, may I request a tour of the navigation array? The physics alone. I cut in before Vasquez could answer. You can have your tour if we survive the landing, Doctor. We continued down the corridor. I kept my pace steady, but the feeling of being watched by the walls made my skin crawl. We reached Ashari Prime on schedule. Through the viewport, the city spread beneath us as the ship settled onto the palace landing platform. When the ramp lowered, we stepped out, and the air felt surprisingly pleasant. The day felt like late afternoon. The sky was green-blue and cloudless, with 2 moons hanging above the city. Ashari Prime was beautiful in a way that felt controlled. White towers rose from the mountainside, connected by thin bridges that caught the light like glass. Below us, the city spread across the valley in clean silver lines. The palace sat high on the mountain, overlooking everything. Admiral Solon, Lady Selin, and the royal guards waited to receive us. Welcome to Ashari Prime, humans, Solon said. The Queen is waiting. Please follow, the Admiral said. As we followed, Mara noticed an old woman staring at us. 10 o'clock. Old woman, Mara whispered. We all looked at the same time, and I felt dizzy as a cold hum crawled through my bones. Hey, Doc, I don't feel well. Dr. Ross scanned me. You're running a slight fever. It must be the ration bar I ate, I said. Mara laughed. It tastes like cardboard and regret. Don't tell me, Vasquez said. The chocolate one. How do you know? I asked. Man, those things give me the runs for days, Vasquez replied. Then all of you should stay hydrated, Dr. Ross said. We were still laughing when we stopped in front of 2 massive doors. 4 guards stood by the doors, 2 on each side. Lady Selin placed her hand on a holographic panel, and the doors slid open. She gestured for us to proceed straight ahead. We entered a vast hall leading to the throne. Towering white pillars lined both sides, rising higher than I could see. The room was large enough to hold thousands of people. Royal guards stood every 3 feet, making the hall feel even larger. At the far end of the hall sat Queen Seraphina. Behind her throne hung the banner of House Senti. Our translation matrix was slow, but it did its job. Beyond it hung 11 more banners, 1 for each noble house of the empire. In person, the Queen was even more striking than the briefing had described. Members of the noble houses stood on both sides of her throne, with more than 400 Ashari watching us. I did not know the proper protocol, so we stopped a few paces from the dais. A heavy silence filled the room until one of the nobles finally spoke. The human delegation from Earth, one noble said. The Queen kept her eyes on me. I stepped forward and said, "What's up?" She tilted her head slightly, as if trying to understand what I had just said. "Thank you for the invitation, Your Majesty," I added. The Queen tilted her head again, and a faint, mocking smile touched her lips. "You must be Commander DeMarco," the Queen said. I nodded. "Do you know who I am, Commander?" she asked. "Did your briefing cover Ashari history? Did it mention how many species I have erased from the stars?" "It mentioned you have never lost a battle," I replied, squaring my shoulders. The hum from her armor suddenly rose in pitch. She let out a short, sharp laugh. "I have ruled 23 systems for nearly 3 centuries, Commander," the Queen said, "and you humans established an outpost close to my border without me noticing." She stood and walked toward me, closing the distance. She stopped inches from my face. "Why do you not shake, human?" "I have been in worse situations, Your Majesty," I said. "This is just another Tuesday," I replied. The Queen's eyes flashed, and her expression shifted with genuine curiosity. "Arrogance in the face of a queen. How impressive." "We call it diplomacy," I countered. "I call it a death wish," she replied. She returned to her throne. Just as she was about to speak, 3 hooded figures dressed in black materialized behind us. Their faces were ashen and their eyes burned red. They moved with impossible speed, crossing the polished floor in a blur of black robes. Shouts erupted from the nobles, sharp and panicked, and the throne room collapsed into chaos. The guards nearest the queen reached for their weapons, but one of the creatures struck first. One of them seized a young guard by the wrist with a pale, claw-like hand. The guard screamed as smoke curled from his skin. Without thinking, I lunged forward and grabbed the creature's arm. I felt a low hum surge from my bones. I stared into its burning red eyes and said, Latid Han Farah. The palace translation matrix recognized the ancient words. Let him go. The creature froze and released the guard. It looked at me in terror. What are you? Who are you? It asked. I smiled and said, Death. At that word, the other two creatures stopped cold. The entire throne room fell into dead silence, every eye fixed on me. The queen stared at me. Mara rushed to my side, her voice tight with panic. Are you okay? I looked at her and nodded. What language was that? She asked, her eyes wide. I shook my head, struggling to steady my breathing, as a strange, powerful hum pulsed through my veins. I don't know. It just came out of me. Before we could react, the creatures regrouped, their forms blurring until they faded. As they vanished, their voices rose together, cutting through the silence. We remember. We are coming. The last image burned into my mind was Doc's wide, panicked eyes. I woke to a flickering amber light. I turned my head and saw a woman standing over me, her skin shifting from teal to silver. She tapped a floating crystalline pane, sending a stream of data into the air. Good, you are awake, she said, her voice smooth and melodic. You suffered a sudden loss of consciousness, she said. I am Dr. Alara. Your neural activity spiked before you took an unplanned nap on the throne room floor. She gestured toward the stream of data. In simpler terms, your brain tried to process too much information at once and overloaded. Your neural chemistry perfectly mirrors the planet's frequency. You did not pass out because you were sick, Dr. Alara said. You collapsed because your brain tried to process a data stream it was never built to handle. Right now, your biology is adapting. If you were hearing the hum before, it should settle as your body adjusts. I will check on you later, Commander. The door slid shut behind her, leaving us in silence. I scanned the room and found Mara slumped in a rigid metal chair nearby. Her chin was tucked against her chest and her breathing was heavy with exhaustion. How long have I been out? I asked, my voice sounded dry. Mara bolted upright, blinking rapidly. Her eyes were bloodshot, with dark purple rings beneath them. 2 days, she replied, her voice thick with relief. I forced myself to sit up. Where are we? The Ashari Palace Medical Bay, Mara said. She stood and stretched, her joints popping in the silence. She stepped closer, her expression tightening. Marco, this whole planet is on full alert. How bad? I asked. Those creatures spooked them. They are preparing for war. Vasquez and Doc are meeting with Human Command back at the outpost right now. When you passed out, the Queen screamed one word. Ishkari, Mara whispered. Then she ordered the guards to secure you. She would not let anyone touch you. The old woman from the landing placed her hand on your chest and started speaking fast in Ashari. After a moment, she nodded, looked at us and said, Okay. I stared at the ceiling as the glowing screens flashed with my body readings. Ishkari. What does that mean? Mara leaned closer. Kev, the guard you saved, told me it means prince. I did not know what to say to that. I just shifted uncomfortably on the bed. Besides, Kev is waiting outside to see you, Mara added. Please tell him to come in, I replied. Mara stepped out and returned moments later with a young Ashari male. He entered the room and immediately dropped to one knee. With his head bowed low, he said, Ishkari. Please don't call me that, I said. Kev looked up, confused by my reaction. Can you stand? I asked. Kev stood slowly. A small, tired smile crossed his dirty face. Thank you, Kev said. I owe you my life. You don't owe me anything, I replied. Then I saw his left side. His sleeve ended at the elbow. His arm was gone. I'm so sorry, I whispered. Kev shrugged with his good shoulder. Don't be, Commander. I'm getting a new one within a week. The pneumatic doors hissed open. The Queen entered, her silhouette sharp against the blinding white light of the corridor. Her gaze swept over the room. She looked at me briefly, then shifted her attention to Kev. Kev bowed again, his forehead nearly touching the floor. Kev, your family has arrived from your colony. They are waiting at Landing Zone 7, the Queen announced. Her voice carried heavy sadness. Thank you, Your Majesty, Kev said. He rose, gave me a final respectful bow, and quietly left the room. The Queen's gaze shifted to Mara. Mara gave a small nod and slipped out as well. Left alone with me, the Queen pulled a chair close to my bed and sat, watching me with amusement. How are you feeling, Commander? She asked. I'm okay, I replied, forcing a faint smile. A cup of coffee would be good right now. She tilted her head, curiosity softening her features. Coffee? She asked. A human stimulant drink, I said. Bitter, hot, and absolutely necessary. The Queen gave a small nod. Then I will have something close to it prepared. Silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken thoughts. I finally broke the silence. What are those creatures? They are called the Vorak, she answered, her voice dropping. The ones in the throne room were not common soldiers. They were scout infiltrators, sent ahead of the main force to bypass defenses. They are ancient predators, she said. We do not know where they came from. It has been 10,000 years since we last saw one of them. Back then, we were a young civilization, unprepared. The Vorak struck Ashari Prime without warning. Our first-generation ships had cloaking technology, Commander, but the Vorak detected them instantly. Within hours, our fleet was reduced to ashes. My ancestors believed our end had come. From the void they came, the Queen said. Their ships looked like birds of prey. My ancestors began calling them the Oshkaren, the first ones who arrived. They turned the tide using ancient harmonic channels. Those channels powered their ships and shields, creating a field that destroyed Vorak biology on contact. They drove the Vorak back into the dark. They helped us build our first harmonic resonant cannon and our first hive propulsion drive, the Queen said. Our technology was far behind theirs, but they still helped us. When she finished, I asked, how did Kev lose his arm? The Vorak are a blight to biological life, she explained. Anything they touch infects and rots away. Even in death, they burn into ash. My heart skipped a beat. I touched them, I said, panic tightening my chest. So how am I still alive? Lady Selva confirmed that your body is in perfect sync with the planet's resonance, the Queen said. Your body created a force shield strong enough to withstand a Vorak touch. It is in your DNA, Commander. It remained dormant until it was needed. Why did you call me Ishkari? I asked. The day I was briefed about your outpost, our seer told me someone would speak the language of the void and stand against death itself, she explained. She said this person would be a prince of the old blood. When I saw you face the Vorak, it all made sense, Commander. You are Ishkari of the first ones, Commander. You carry Oshkaren DNA. Your Majesty, what happened to the Oshkaren? I asked. The Queen drew a deep breath. They stayed for a little while, until they knew we were safe, she replied. Then just as they came, they left. We begged them to stay, but they disappeared into the blackness of the void. Though we never learned where they came from, we kept their gift alive. We did not know their technology would affect the planet the way it did. It was as if their gift became part of the planet itself. I stayed quiet, trying to understand what she had told me. The Queen looked out the window. The Ashari harmonic resonant cannon is the pride of our fleet, Commander, but it is still only an echo of the Oshkaren original. Suddenly alarms shattered the quiet, blaring all over the palace. Admiral Solon rushed into the room, his expression grim. Your Majesty, Ishkari. We have emergency contact from the colony on Kados, Solon reported. A massive Vorak armada has arrived. Over 2,000 warships, Solon said, and 4 colossal construction vessels. If Kados falls, the enemy will be only 3 hours from the core worlds. The Queen turned back to me. Commander, a Terran ship landed this morning at the palace landing zone. I believe it's your ride. She began to leave the room but stopped at the threshold. It was an honor to meet you, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I stopped for a second. Her words took me by surprise. The honor was mine, Your Majesty, I said as the doors closed behind her. Mara and I hurried to the palace landing zone. The Tiger Claw was massive, brutal, and loud. Not pretty, just dangerous. Human ships did not glide through space. They punched through it. Their fold engines could tear them out of one sector and drop them into another with brutal speed. The moment I reached the bridge, I told Captain Vasquez and Human Command everything the Queen had told me about the Vorak, the Oshkaren, and Kados. Vasquez leaned back in his chair and smiled. "So you've got blue blood in you after all." "Nah," I replied, cracking a dry smile. Mara laughed. After everything that had happened over the past few days, Human Command decided Earth had too much at stake in the Ashari Prime sector to stay out of the fight. They authorized our 12 ships stationed at Tessa to assist the Ashari against the Vorak threat. Mara was already linking our systems with Ashari High Command. We briefed the Queen and Admiral Solon right away. Ashari High Command informed us they had 800 warships ready for combat. However, 200 were already locked in a desperate fight at Kados. That left 600 ships to follow the Queen. At maximum fold speed, the Tiger Claw could reach Kados in an hour and a half. The Ashari fleet would need 2 hours at full speed. Their vessels were works of predatory art, built for precision, stealth, and harmonic warfare. When active, Ashari ships gave off a low, vibrating hum that sounded like a swarm of bees. It was not just engine noise. The vibration came from their localized harmonic fields, which stabilized their cloaking technology and controlled the firing sequence of their harmonic resonant cannons. We told Ashari Command we would support the Ashari ships already in the sector and try to hold the Vorak line until their main fleet arrived. Around noon, all 12 of our ships entered the fold. Through the priority comms link Mara had established, we could hear the battle falling apart in real time. Desperate crews screamed for reinforcements, their voices breaking under a repeated Ashari Command network alert that echoed through the sector. The warriors have engaged the enemy. The battle at Kados filled every speaker on the ship. No one spoke. We listened, and the air grew heavier with every second. Vasquez gave Mara a sharp nod. She understood immediately and cut the audio. A high-priority transmission flashed on Mara's console, a data package sent directly by the Queen. Mara screamed, "What do we have here?" Vasquez and I asked at the same time, "What?" Mara projected the data onto the main screen. The Vorak warships were jagged structures that looked like ancient space debris, but their weapons were devastating. Their scanning fields stripped away Ashari cloaking technology, making stealth useless. Instead of standard energy beams, the Vorak used kinetic plasma lances to pierce armor. When a Vorak vessel breached a ship, it deployed fast-moving necrotic spikes inside. Because Vorak tactics rely on extreme speed, they deploy construction units to repair damaged ships and provide constant logistics support. To counter the Ashari harmonic resonant cannons, the units rapidly build heavy spires across the battlefield. These spires absorb and scatter harmonic energy, creating safe zones that let the Vorak fleet advance. "Well, at least we know what to expect," Vasquez said. "Commander, the Queen has addressed a message just to you." "Send it to my terminal, please," I replied. The message was short and simple. "Commander, your DNA carries your ancestors' knowledge. Use it." I understood immediately why the Queen sent me that message. "Captain, I recommend loading shield breaker torpedo salvos on all ships," I urged. "The first impact will fracture the Vorak shielding for a fraction of a second. We need the second torpedo trailing right behind it to punch through the breach and crack their armor plating." Vasquez did not hesitate. "Roger that, Commander. Mara, send it." He opened the fleet-wide channel. "All elements, this is Tiger Claw. Load SBTS salvos. All batteries, weapons hot. Time to intercept is 20 mics. Roger, Tiger Claw. Message received. Weapons hot." Sentinel, Paladin, and the rest of the elements confirmed SBTS configuration across all forward tubes. "Battle stations. Shields ready," Vasquez ordered. 3 distinct whistles sounded through the ship. A moment later, reality snapped back into place. When we dropped out of the fold, the horror of the sector lay bare before us. Of the 200 Ashari ships that had been defending Kados, only 90 remained. "Shields up. Weapons hot, the tactical officer confirmed. Kados's planetary harmonic resonant cannons are giving the Vorak hell, Mara called out, turning from her display. Weapon sync is at 94%. The remaining fleet elements are forming up on our flanks. Fire control is linking the dual-stage timers to the Tiger Claw's primary targeting system. The moment our first birds impact and fracture the Vorak energy shields, the secondary armor crackers will launch automatically on the exact same microvector. The bridge grew quiet except for the sound of the ship's systems and the steady ping of long-range sensors sweeping the void. Across the ship, crews checked seals and locked down bulkheads. The tactical officer reported each section green. As the 90 surviving Ashari ships slid through the darkness, the arrival of the Tiger Claw and her 11 escorts changed the fight. 12 heavily armored human warships, fresh from the fold, now stood shoulder to shoulder with the battered Ashari line. The void above Kados erupted into chaos. The Tiger Claw's primary targeting system synced to the Ashari resonance pings as the dual-stage timers locked onto each harmonic impact point. Human SBTS tore through the void, straight into the Vorak shields. On impact, the torpedoes sent a violent pulse through the Vorak energy shields. The shields fractured, flashing brilliant white before tearing open. Right behind them, the secondary armor crackers punched through the temporary breaches. They detonated deep inside the Vorak warships and ripped them apart from the inside out. High above Kados, the Vorak construction units moved to assemble orbital spires and secure the tactical grid. Kados's planetary defenses fought them every step of the way. Massive harmonic resonant cannons, buried within the planet's defense network, fired harmonic waves into the atmosphere. The harmonic waves caught the Vorak construction units mid-orbit, forcing the metallic vessels to shake, break apart, and rain down across the scorched land as useless scrap. "Brace for impact!" Mara screamed as a blinding lance of Vorak plasma slammed into the Tiger Claw dead center. The deck bucked and groaned under our boots. The Tiger Claw whipped hard to the side, throwing the bridge crew against their harnesses. Smoke burst from the wall panels. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Blue electricity snapped across broken consoles as the main tactical screens went dark. "Status report," Vasquez barked, coughing through the smoke as he fought to clear his screen. "Forward armor took most of the impact," Mara yelled back, her fingers flying across the console. "Fires on decks 20 and 21 are contained. Medical reports 13 crew members with minor injuries. Structural integrity is holding and shields are at 90%. The composite alloy armor absorbed the heat. No breach, sir. She's holding." Before the crew could draw a breath of relief, Mara's console lit up with a high-priority subspace alert. "Captain!" Mara shouted over the tactical net, her face illuminated by the flashing crimson of exploding enemy ships. "The link is holding. The combination of our SBTS torpedoes and the Ashari harmonic resonance is melting the Vorak line. They didn't calculate for the human element stepping out of the fold." "Keep those tubes cycling," Vasquez ordered. 93 Vorak targets neutralized in the first cross-engagement. We are drawing their fire away from the Ashari defensive line. But outside the viewing ports, a nightmare was unfolding. A Vorak cruiser, moving with terrifying, erratic speed, rammed the flank of the human escort ship Sentinel. On impact, the enemy vessel fired horrific necrotic spikes deep into the escort's inner decks. The organic metallic rot spread fast through the Sentinel's reactive armor, weakening the hull from the inside. At the same time the Sentinel was being hit, Vorak high-mobility construction units moved fast through the void and completed 2 immense spires above Kados's orbit. The spires opened safe zones for the Vorak advance and cut off the ground-based harmonic cannons in those areas. "Captain," Mara called out, fighting to keep her voice steady. "The Sentinel is suffering catastrophic structural failures on decks 4 through 9. They're firing secondary batteries blind. Those orbital spires are choking the planet's harmonic grid in those sectors. The Vorak will overrun our front lines before the Ashari reinforcement fleet exits their harmonic transit lane." The situation was critical. The Sentinel was being eaten alive from the inside out. The ground-based harmonic cannons were useless in those sectors, and Vorak forces were flooding through the safe zones. "Captain!" Mara screamed in desperation. "Something is wrong with Marco." "What?" Vasquez shouted. The bridge blurred around me. My body went still. My vision burned white. I could hear the alarms, and Mara and Vasquez were calling my name, but their voices sounded far away, like they were coming from some deep place. The hum filled my bones and pulled me inward. The Oshkaren bloodline awakened inside me. For this moment, I was more than just Marco. I saw the Oshkaren defeat the Vorak. With sudden clarity, I saw the battlefield around Kados. It was no longer a mess of fire and steel. It became a map of harmonic frequencies, the Oshkaren Harmonic Resonance Channel. Their knowledge passed into me. We were one and the same. I saw the Vorak's weak point. My vision snapped back to normal, and I looked at Captain Vasquez. He was staring at me, fear plain on his face. "Permission to address the fleet, Captain?" I asked. "Permission granted," he replied. "All elements in this station, this is the Tiger Claw. Acknowledge." "Roger, Tiger Claw." Acknowledged. One by one, the human escorts and Ashari vessels answered. The construction units are not independent. They are being controlled by 4 giant construction vessels positioned behind the spires. If we neutralize those giant vessels, the smaller construction units will lose their command guidance and shut down. The necrotic spikes inside the Sentinel will freeze in place. The Sentinel stayed silent. I ended the transmission and uploaded the data I had received from the Oshkaren straight to Mara's console. She synced the update to all ships in Kados's planetary grid. "We have to hit the spires and the giant construction vessels at the same time," I told the captain. Vasquez gave me a nod. "We had to collapse their defenses and burn the Vorak out of orbit the moment they tried to advance. That was how the Oshkaren did it a long time ago." The tactical screen updated, targeting solutions established. 2 massive spires and 4 giant construction vessels. Beside me, Vasquez gripped the armrests of his command chair and barked the order. "Human escorts, punch a hole through the Vorak Armada. Ashari ships, keep their line pinned. We need a clear path to those spires and construction vessels." "Captain," Mara yelled through the noise, "I received confirmation. The Queen's fleet is approaching." "Mara, delay all attack orders," Vasquez ordered. "Tell all ships to cover the Queen's arrival." Mara's fingers flew across her console. "All elements, delay attack. Provide cover fire. Keep the Vorak off the harmonic transit exit point." Every Allied ship poured cover fire into the Vorak line. Combined weapons tore across the void, forcing the Vorak to split their fire. For a few precious seconds, we carved a path through the chaos. Through that opening, the space ahead of Kados rippled, twisted, and shimmered as the Ashari harmonic transit lane opened. From the blinding flash emerged the magnificent white and silver Imperial flagship Adalila, leading the Ashari fleet into battle. The Ashari ships following the Adalila exited the harmonic transit lane like silver birds of prey, their engines carrying the familiar deep hum. Their shields were still cycling back up. 10 of the Adalila's escorts maneuvered into position to cover the Imperial flagship. The Vorak had expected the arrival. Their scanning fields could read through Ashari cloaking and track harmonic transit vectors. They knew exactly where the Queen's fleet would appear. They unleashed plasma lances and necrotic spikes straight into the exit lane. The Adalila took a full frontal attack without shields. The 10 escorts maneuvering to protect the flagship were struck by plasma lances and necrotic spikes. Their vessels cracked open, turning into clouds of silver dust. 4 human escorts, seeing the Adalila in trouble, moved to buy the Imperial flagship more time for her shields to reach full strength. They were vaporized instantly. Their transponders blinked out one after another on our tactical display, each lost signal hitting us like a physical blow. The Tiger Claw groaned and shook under the shock waves, but avoided the worst of the Vorak's intense fire. Before the Tiger Claw's tactical systems could adjust to the sudden arrival of the Ashari fleet, the primary view screen came to life. The viewer showed Queen Seraphina standing on the bridge of the battered but unbroken Adalila. Smoke drifted behind her, warning lights flashed across her command deck, yet she looked straight into the transmission feed with calm amusement. "Hello, boys and girls," the Queen announced, her voice dripping with royal confidence. "I apologize for the delay. Traffic was a nightmare." Mara gave a short laugh, despite the alarms still screaming around us. "She is making jokes while her flagship is half scorched," Mara muttered. "Where did she learn that?" The Queen's amused voice returned through the open channel. "From your commander, Lieutenant Higgins. He made jokes in my throne room when danger was close. I find that strangely useful." Everyone on the bridge stared at me. I leaned toward the open channel with a small smile. "Me?" "Yes, you," the Queen said, smiling. Vasquez turned slowly toward Mara, like he could not believe what he had just heard. Mara only shrugged. I leaned into the still open channel. "Your Majesty, I'm pushing an update to your weapon systems and ships right now. It is a frequency adjustment for your hive propulsion drives and planetary defense grids. This update will bridge your modern Ashari systems with the ancient Oshkaren harmonic channels." Data flooded the flagship's displays, reflecting in the Queen's widening eyes. Across the Ashari fleet, the baseline frequency of the hive propulsion drives dropped into a violent hum that rose into the roar of angry wasps. The hair on our bodies rose as the sound set our armor plating, vibrating like struck tuning forks. With the sequence finalized, the Ashari harmonic resonant cannons prepared to unleash the unfiltered power of the first ones. Mara glanced at me, then raised one finger. "So, let me get this straight. You are giving untested power to an alien race. Who is going to be responsible if this goes wrong?" Vasquez and I shouted at the same time. "Higgins, shut up!" With the fleet weapons update complete and target solutions acquired, the Queen looked at Vasquez. "Ready when you are, Captain." Vasquez leaned forward in his command chair. "All elements, fire! Fire! Fire!" The command ripped across the fleet-wide tactical net, and I watched the universe answer in pure violence. In perfect sync, the entire fleet of Ashari and human vessels fired. The Ashari ships roared like angry wasps. I covered my ears as the sound shook the void over Kados. The Ashari vessels aligned their hive propulsion drives at full power, and their harmonic resonant cannons became one Oshkaren harmonic channel. From the surface of Kados, the planetary harmonic resonant cannons joined in, sending a massive shockwave of energy from the fleet above and the planet below. The force turned the debris and engine exhaust into a shimmering silver crest that surged like a wall of pure light. The two massive spires, built to absorb harmonic frequencies, tried to choke the incoming resonance, but they could not handle the concentrated power of the Oshkaren channel. The spires began to fracture, their heavy metallic structures vibrating so violently that they shattered into dust-sized fragments. The Vorak safe zones collapsed in a single heartbeat. With the spires pulverized, the four giant construction vessels stood exposed against the oncoming assault. The Tiger Claw and the remaining human ships launched SBTS warheads while their turrets fired through the debris cloud. Four blinding, white-hot explosions ignited in Kados's upper atmosphere as the massive vessels were torn to ash. The moment those four giant construction vessels were destroyed, the small construction units froze mid-motion. Without their command signal, and under the relentless stress of the harmonic fire, they fell into the atmosphere of Kados like a million shooting stars tearing through the darkness. On our tactical displays, the necrotic rot ravaging the Sentinel froze mid-spread, sparing the ship from complete failure. For a moment, the Vorak did not break. They surged forward anyway, throwing everything they had left into one final push. Then their formation broke, ship by ship. Our targeting systems locked onto their heat signatures, and the fleet opened fire. Secondary armor crackers and harmonic fire tore through the retreating armada until nothing but scorched scrap remained in orbit. "Direct hits across all primary sectors," Mara yelled over the comms. "The Vorak armada is completely neutralized." On the main viewer, Queen Seraphina flashed a sharp, brilliant smile. The bridge of her flagship was busy with incoming and outgoing communications. "Beautifully coordinated, Tiger Claw," the Queen said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Clear the remaining sectors," the Queen ordered. "I want Kados fully secured, no surprises." Captain Vasquez checked his console and looked up. "Agreed, Your Majesty." The Queen's voice returned over the channel. "Then let us wrap this up quickly, Captain. I still owe Prince Marco a cup of coffee." Vasquez smiled despite the chaos on the bridge. "Then we had better finish fast, Your Majesty." Across the battlefield, the Allied fleet advanced as one, tearing through the last broken remnants of the Vorak force. For the next couple of hours, they swept Kados's orbit, securing and clearing every sector. Later, after Kados and the space around it were secured, Queen Seraphina appeared at the center of the main view screen. She stood tall, her regal posture softening into reverence as she looked past the captain's chair, her eyes locking directly onto me. Ishkari, the queen said, her voice echoing with ancient weight across the comms channel. It took a moment for the ship's translation matrix to translate it across our tactical screens. Prince of the First Ones. I stepped forward. Everyone on the bridge watched in silence as the connection between humanity's hidden Oshkaren past and the Ashari was made clear. Our alliance will not be written on paper, the queen said. It was forged in the stars. She paused. Her eyes did not blink the way human eyes would. When she spoke again, her voice dropped lower, heavy with the cost of victory. Survival has a heavy price, Queen Seraphina said, her words carrying through the comms. The Ashari people have suffered great losses, and so have your people, Captain. They have returned to the silence between stars. All vessels on this station, let the living fall silent for the departed. On our main viewer, the Queen bowed her head with the slow precision of ritual, not the way humans showed grief. On the bridge of the Tiger Claw, Captain Vasquez, Mara, every officer on deck and I followed her lead. For one long, breathless moment, the only sound on the bridge was the low, steady drone of cooling systems. My thoughts drifted to the Sentinel, still clinging to life after losing so many of her crew to the necrotic breach. When the Queen finally raised her eyes, her gaze settled on Vasquez, acknowledging him as a warrior across the stars. May the void bear them softly beyond the last light, she said. May they find peace, Your Majesty, Vasquez replied. Captain Vasquez straightened his chair. Battle stations, stand down. Weapons offline. Tell all ships to set course for Ashari Prime. Yes, Captain, Mara replied, fingers moving across the console as she sent the flight plan to the fleet. Link the Sentinel's navigation grid to our primary thrusters, Vasquez added. We'll tow her and the surviving escorts with us. We don't leave anyone behind. I took a deep, steady breath, my hands trembling slightly. I looked out the viewport as the fleet began to align for departure. The victory was real, but it did not feel good. Too many ships were missing from the formation. A few days later, after the wounded were cared for and the dead were honored, I stood in the grand throne room of the Imperial Palace. Queen Seraphina, the Ashari nobles, the human delegation, and billions watching across the empire waited in silence. The Queen had asked me to address the empire. I gave them a simple message in the ancient tongue, Tuert eki länger ein. Above the grand dais, the palace translation matrix flickered as it converted the ancient words into galactic common, projecting them in holographic script for all to see. You are no longer alone. A wave of surprise moved through the gathered nobles. In the front rows, several older nobles bowed their heads with deep respect. Queen Seraphina slowly rose from her throne. She looked straight at me, her face showing pride and respect. Then she pressed her right hand over her heart as a sign of honor, and every noble in the chamber quickly did the same. The noble houses of Ashari and I have formed a new house within the empire, the Queen announced, her powerful voice reaching every corner of the realm. This house is not Ashari and does not come from our royal blood, but it will have equal standing within our empire. House Oshkaren of Terra, led by Prince Marco, is now bound to the empire until the stars themselves burn out. Humanity and the Ashari stand as one. After the ceremony, I met Mara and Captain Vasquez at the palace landing zone. The Tiger Claw was ready to leave for our old outpost. I stood there watching it, and the truth finally hit me. Mara and Vasquez were leaving without me. As head of House Oshkaren, I had to stay on Ashari Prime and help hold the new alliance together. The ship, the crew, the noise, the bad coffee, all of it had been my life. Now I had to stay behind. I tried to smile, but it hurt. You two better come back, I said. The outpost isn't far from here by FTL, so promise me you will visit. Vasquez held out his hand, but his smile was weak. We will, Your Highness, he said. Then his voice softened. Stay alert. Stay alive. When I turned to Mara, she was already crying. She did not try to hide it. She walked over to me and wrapped her arms around me like she was afraid to let go. "We are going to miss you, Commander," she whispered. Her voice broke on the last word. "Please do not let this place change you." I held her as tight as I could. I wanted to say something to her, but I was speechless. If I opened my mouth, I knew I would break. So I just nodded against her shoulder and let her go. I stepped back as the heavy boarding ramp hissed shut. Standing alone at the edge of the landing bay, I watched the tiger claw rise into the alien sky and turn toward the void. I looked down at my hands. They were scarred from old missions, but they were no longer shaking. I let out a long, slow breath. I was far from Earth now. I turned back toward the palace of Ashari Prime, and for the first time, I knew exactly who I was. I was Marco of Terra, and the universe had just learned my name. Far out in the deep void, 3 pods drifted silently through the dark. Inside them, 3 hooded figures waited in stasis.